to the Literary Cypher. I'm so excited to have you all here. It feels like I haven't been up here for a while because, like I said, I haven't hosted since July. So I feel a little rusty, and I'm overexcited because I've missed it so much. Just a little background. This is just a little reading series that I started a year ago while we were in quarantine. And it was just a way to connect to other people in the writing community, immerse myself into the writing community as well, because I am not a quote unquote professional writer. I didn't go to school for it. I went to school for biology. So, so this is my way of connecting with my fellow artists. Did everybody have a chance to look at the reading order, the lineup order? Okay, so just to refresh everyone, let me pull it up real quick. And in the meantime, between time, please, when other readers are reading, please warm up in the chat. If a line resonates with you, go ahead and put it on up there in the chat. Hype them up. Readers, also put your links to your books, your social media handles, all that. Put all that in the chat, and then I share it to the page. I actually have like a little database, so everybody who's ever read for the Cypher, somebody can easily go to the Literary Cypher group on Facebook and find their books, find the way to follow them, all that good stuff. Okay, we want to promote and support each other. That's what it's all about. Okay. What was I going to say? It was one other thing. And if everyone could please mute while people are reading, just to be respectful in this space. Does everybody know how to mute?
No.
Oh, yeah. Let me see. I'll go ahead and let me go ahead and mute you. It should be a little. There you go. Okay. What? I'm gonna go ahead and mute you now. Or do you got anything left to say, Miss Adriane?
Oh, mute. Oh, I see it. Yeah.
You got it.
Also, I don't know how to put a link in the chat. So if there's another way to send a link, I'd be happy to do it. But you know,
all right,
technology is not my.
It's all good. I'll make sure that your links get shared to the page.
Okay.
All right. So the reading order, the lineup is Omayma. We got Miss Adriane, Alan, Kim B. Miller, Sean, Nicole, and then chisaraokwu. Okay. So we're just gonna go one after the other. And just keep it going. And hopefully after everyone's read, hopefully we have a little bit of time left. And if you guys want to stay on the chat, I normally leave the meeting open. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I got my cup. A quick little shout out to my little sister. She makes these Auntie J's custom stuff. So got my cup. Hope you all have your drink, your tea, your whiskey, your wine, whatever it is. Let's sit on back and get ready for story time. Omayma, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you, LP, also for just this opportunity. I appreciate it. A mother knows best. A mother knows best the flowering of a pot left unwatered, unattended to, unnourished, can die, can wilt and brown, tear at veins and dry at crevices and edges, until its flakiness cases your hands and window panes, and floors that once were clean. A mother knows best. That which you hide in plain sight can lurk in darkness, can surprise others, but never her, because she was you once, and you she once. When your feet still forming kicked her protective layer, reminding her of your existence, a tiny bean, a small pod, a minuscule of a life fed, nourished, and loved. As time slowly advanced in quarters and trimesters, in months and in dilations, in gestational tempo as two hearts beat to the same rhythm, of spicy foods and too much broccoli, of stress and sadness and happiness, of hand on belly, back arched, shoulders tight. A mother knows best how to begin, how to hold your hand, comb your strands into pigtails, curl each section to bounce, to shimmer in light, with colorful beaded baubles and cubic zirconia bobby pins, spraying wisps of hair at nape of neck, brushing up, holding in their wildness. A mother knows best. When under siege, a body forms of kaleidoscope, of raging pain, of bloated feet and sore knees, of tired hands and heavy pelvis, where hard floor naps are saviors, except when how to get up is still in question. A mother knows best when tears form rivers and stain cheeks because someone somewhere said something. We pick and choose, like picking out stones from rice before we cook, strain, filter, sieve, friendships only until gold remains. A mother knows best how grief hangs upside down, in full room silent except for her thoughts. Darkness is never quiet. Neither are the voices in her head that question, interrogate, make her feel her failure, despite her success. Grief holds in that space, the space in the no longer beating heart, in the sparkle of her eye, in the crook of her arm. My next one, just get it here. I wasn't supposed to be heard. I wasn't supposed to be heard. My thoughts herded like sheep awaiting slaughter. Opinions ramble on under dark lines of poetry like cocaine cut up with a credit card, etched name and debts on a report that traps student loans. Loaned someone my voice once. They tore it to shreds and masked the fumes that escaped. Burned my thoughts to ashes. Burned from years of letdowns and no-goes, my armor worn on my head, veiled and denied. Denied because I'm veiled. My speech impeccable on paper, but my name too exotic, too feminine for the male-dominated industry of old white men in positions, gifted, same one I bled, sweat, and tears for. One place changed my name to be more American. What's in a name? Not a damn rose when it's looked at once, discarded to the side because maybe, just maybe, there is a chance I am too colored, too exotic, too Middle Eastern, but that my tongue may be too accented, too oppressed, too depressed, pressed like the flower from 99 between pages of Frost and Blake, white men, poetic canon taught before Angelo and Lord. On a train, I speak to a friend. I get looks, whispers of words to speak English, raghead. I want to say English is new. The Arabic language has 12.3 million words. English only 600,000, and many of them rooted in Arabic. Like alcohol and alchemy, algebra and coffee, like our number system. I want to say all that and more, but I just stay silent and turn away. The next one is called Cartwheels. I make cartwheels in my head, turn like yoga poses, prayer stance on worn out rug, head to soil. I recite praise and worship, supplications to the heavens, and you lose power when I find strength, so you take that away from me. I dance cartwheels in my head, heart throbbing, gut wrenching, as you push wheel spokes through my identity. Hold power over me, make me hunger for acceptance. I recite praise and prayer and power. You take my language, voice from sorrows, and tumbleweed them into empty deserts where oasis is imagined, palm trees and dates under shade of hot Arabian sun. Yes, Arabian sun. Can't take the warmth from me, the element that satiates my hunger, the way you took language, turned words of prayer and praise and power into words of death and terror, made them synonymous to evil. Jihad, Allah, Ummah, my struggle, my God, my nation, under one, indivisible, until you drew lines on my map, created blood with my people. And the last one is called My Tongue Tied Broken. People say you have no accent, as if my voice was meant to be different. They say I speak broken, like my mother tongue never existed. My lingual frenulum holds tight, but is it broken? Left in one piece, I cannot roll my R's or make the zarhut sound to show joy. So I am broken, even if my tongue isn't. I am tongue-tied. My cheeks hold syllables I am sometimes too afraid of saying, fear of mispronunciation, like Quranic verses, too poetic, too beautiful, too honored to mess up. They call me broken, that my English is better than my mother tongue. I tell them my mother tongue is English, and I am not broken. I am whole, I am dual, like sun and moon, like black canvas sky and stars, winds and spirits. I am not broken. I am not one or two, but all. And my mother tongue meets my father tongue, meets brother tongue, meets sister tongue, meets cousin's tongue, meets ancestors colonized, meets ancestors brutalized, meets oppressors and oppressed, meets rivers where my under tongue's flesh doesn't divide, meets cannons trapped within pockets of teeth and cracks, meets wetness of tongue, and my lingual frenulum meets my too large tonsils for my pediatric mouth that provides a little echo of words, and they break in shyness and self-doubt. But I am not broken, except when you say my mother tongue is not mine. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Miss Adriane, thanks so much for that, Omayma. That was dope. I loved every
Thank you.
piece.
Thank you.
Yes, agreed. That was great. Hi, everyone. Just want to say that I'm honored and very excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to hearing all the readings tonight. Before I start, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my book. It's a novel. It's called The Cafe on Dream Street, and I would put it in the category of social justice fiction. And I want to put in a plug for social justice fiction because we need more of it. There are many fabulous nonfiction books, give great information to people. I've read some amazing ones, but the thing about fiction, especially social justice fiction, it allows people to make emotional connections, can appeal more to the human side and connect more personally with the issues and the people involved in them, just a little more personal. So before I start reading, I want to share some information about the book. The novel tells the story of two families caught up in the current immigration crisis in their town. One family has an undocumented member, and the other family is involved in the anti-immigration movement. Tonight, I will introduce you to one of those families. 20 years had passed since Felipe found his front door cracked and broken. Nothing left but jagged pieces of brown wood hanging off the frame. Unfamiliar voices, shouting, threatening voices spilled through the doorway, mixed with sobbing and loud wails. He had a new life now, but the memories remained, intruding at the most inconvenient times, squeezing the breath out of him, leaving him lightheaded and dizzy as his heart hammered in his chest and the room filled with the odor of death. Felipe shook himself, wiping the sweat from his forehead with the edge of his sleeve. El Salvador faded, and he was in Oakmont again, 15 miles from New York City, in a little storefront restaurant owned by his uncle, Miguel. Customers were sparse this time of day, the usual mid-morning slump, so he wiped down all of the tables, then stepped into the storage room to replenish the kitchen supplies. He was reaching for a bottle of cooking oil when the sound of loud voices stopped him in his tracks. The storage area had no door, only a curtain that served as a barrier between the two rooms, but there was a small space near the shelves where he could flatten himself against the wall and peer through a tiny opening in the curtain. A hand was waving at Tio Miguel, a hand extending from the dark blue sleeve of a uniform. Officer Bradley, Oakmont PD, and this here's Officer Dawson. Bradley, the bald one with the big belly, stepped behind the counter, his eyes wandering over the stove, the sink, the grill. How many people you got working here? 3, 5 on the weekends. Officer Bradley brushed against the storeroom curtain as he bent down to inspect the cabinet under the sink, then yanked open the oven door and peered in. Names? Tio Miguel squeezed the water out of the sponge, watched it trickle down the drain. My nephew and his wife, they have teenagers who do a few shifts on the weekend after school, and we have extra people working weekends sometimes. El Patio Cafe was not much more than a kitchen with a front counter and a few tables and chairs, but it was Felipe's refuge, his sanctuary, his hope for his children's future. He especially loved making pupusas. He made them from scratch, and his rough hands delighted in the softness of the flour as he kneaded the dough, a softness that reminded him of the dirt under his bare feet back in his village. He would roll the dough into a ball in the palm of his hand and press a filling of cheese, pork, or refried beans into the center, then gently slap it from palm to palm to flatten it before he browned it on the griddle. His creation, his work of art, an art he hoped would send his children to college. Officer Bradley slapped his hand loudly on the counter. Your nephew's name. He grabbed the back of Tio Miguel's neck and slammed his head into the counter. Give me your nephew's name now. You don't cooperate with us, we can close you down, buddy. We have a problem with people who break our laws, sell drugs to our kids, and don't pay taxes. Your nephew pay taxes on the drugs he sells? No, we're not like that. We always pay the taxes, and we sell food here. We just sell food. We don't sell drugs, Tio Miguel muttered. You got a lot to say, Gonzalez, except when I ask you a question, Bradley snapped, slamming Tio Miguel's head into the counter again. A trickle of blood ran from his nose and dripped out onto his shirt, leaving a dark red stain. Now, tell me your nephew's name, unless you want to come down to the station with us. Got a nice little cell that would fit you just fine. Sanchez, Felipe Sanchez, Tio Miguel whispered through clenched teeth. He grabbed the cloth from under the counter and held it up to his bloody nose. Officer Dawson leaned against the counter, his fingers curled around the handcuffs that hung from his belt. He had the round, ruddy cheeks of a rookie and the powerful arms of an athlete, his burly frame pumped up from hours of lifting weights. He slowly unhooked the handcuffs and twirled them in the air, inches from Tio Miguel's face, then picked up a salt shaker and rapped it on the counter 3 times as though he was summoning a servant. Been here 10 minutes and you haven't offered us a thing to drink. That's not very good business. A glass of water appeared on the counter next to the salt shaker. Water? That's what you're offering me, water? Dawson barked, shoving the glass back at Tio Miguel. The glass slid across the counter, toppling over with a thud. A pool of water trickled from the glass and dripped over the edge, forming a puddle on the floor. Get me a Coke or root beer. Dawson glanced over at Bradley, who was fiddling with the knobs on the stove, turning the burners on and off. Soda for you, he asked. Nah, I don't drink that sugar water. I prefer the real stuff. But you wouldn't be serving beer, would you, Gonzalez? I don't recall seeing a liquor license. The water disappeared and another glass appeared where the water had been. Officer Dawson took a sip, cradling the glass between his hands, his eyes fixed on Tio Miguel. Your nephew come through customs at JFK Airport? Betty swam across the bay from Jersey, Bradley snickered. You take the Staten Island ferry, you can see them saluting the Statue of Liberty as they swim by. Their laughter, sharp as a knife blade, was tempered only by the thin cloth that hung between the 2 rooms. Oh. Okay. What do I do?
Say something.
Oh, thank you. Am I on mute still? No, I'm not on mute. Other people are on mute. Hi, Sherry.
Thanks, Miss Adriane.
Okay, okay.
All right,
Oh, there he
so
is.
I think next. So I just want to start by thanking LP, and anyone else who was responsible for this event. You know, thank you for the invitation. And just real quick, if you hear some background noise, it's dinner time, so you may hear a 5-year-old who doesn't understand the concept of quiet. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have like 3 poems I'm going to do. So just jump right into them. And they're pretty self-explanatory. Beacon. An intern asked, "Aren't you scared?" And you remember the hospital clerk saying what you're doing is courageous. You do what you have to for your wife whose life is leashed to a box, cleaning her blood before spooling it back into her body. It does what it has to because her kidneys can't. And weren't they courageous standing their ground before lupus took them out? Its gluttony left you scratching your head, lost in this new life, the one that marks you donor and your wife recipient, the one where the transplant centers another turf to navigate, this life where words like renal failure and nephrectomy seizing your new tongue. You watch your wife sleep while the machine chimes and beeps, remembering the intern's question. Of course, there were moments that gobbled your bravery to a morsel. The emergency room visits, lupus nearly taking her out. And isn't she the courageous one? How she welcomes each day, even those where grief is the overcast sky. Those moments when the only light is a heroic heart blazing these dark streets, winding beyond the mysterious and unknown. This next one is Into the Light, and this is after the surgery. You're a floor below me, healing in your room. Both of us soar from the divine puppetry of science, God pulling the surgeon's strings, sliding the kidney from inside me, routing it to its new body in Connecticut. And wasn't he present in the hand's deft dance and how hope lit the operating room like a stage? Your new kidney ready for its debut inside you, having traveled in a freight of prayers, 17 hours from Minneapolis to DC. Didn't our road here seem even longer, not being a direct match? The hiccup in lab results, us hurling our names into an exchange pool deep with uncertainty. And here we are in our beds, an elevator ride from each other. This moment, like the 90-degree day beyond our windows, the cloudless sky, shadows receding in the sunlight. So then this last poem is for my now 16-month-old, and it's also for George Floyd. So this is The Land of Innocence for Jade Rose or Jade, for Jade Rose and George Floyd. A YouTube clip shows a protest ignited after police killed George Floyd, torched SUVs, overturned cop cars, armored officers retreating. All of that sinks my wife into a deeper postpartum, having made it through our personal crisis. We watched the python of despair coil itself around America, blowing out glass storefronts and colliding angry bodies as the tension constricts and crushes. We're miles for the mayhem, but a different kind of danger finds us in the maternity ward, a decreasing heartbeat, frenzied nurses rushing my wife to the OR, surgeons scrambling to save our daughter. Watching the news, I'm reminded of slogans on chaos as necessity, Real discoveries come from chaos. Chaos is beautiful and full of fertility. But when it's a violent pattern of reactions, what's the real discovery? Where's the beauty in things shattered and tagged if the same pattern of injustice ripples our lives? So maybe chaos isn't the right word. Let's try instead challenge. And since it means refuting the truth or its validity, isn't a protest a public dispute of someone else's truth? Like the one about the fear of dark bodies, how it justifies us being mangled or discredited in news cycles. Wouldn't the beauty then be new laws that get us closer to becoming the people the Constitution claims it protects? Let me begin again. When my wife told me several months ago she was pregnant, we knew the challenge of this birth could take her life, just as the challenge in the hospital threatened our daughters. And isn't it an act of faith to go blindfolded into the future and be delighted by the light there? Now we're lit by a dancing star named Jade, short for Jadesola, which in Yoruba means come into wealth. She's jade like the green stone said to emit wisdom and clarity. I'm feeding her while watching the YouTube video. Someone on screen yells, "We're better than this," and she squeals, mouth dripping with her mother's milk, smiling while dreaming her baby dreams. That land of innocence, where it all starts, before we lose our way back, rationalizing our destruction. Thank you.
That was awesome, Alan. Thank you. Wow. Awesome. Just had a second to let that breathe. That was so good. Okay. So my name is Kim B. Miller, and I'm the Poet Laureate for Prince William County, Virginia, including Manassas and Manassas Park. I'm the first African-American Poet Laureate for PWC. Thank y'all. I will be doing some poems in haikus, and I'll explain what haikus are now. Haikus are super short, 17 syllables. You know the traditional ones. Those are nature and flowers. I'll be doing senryu, which are non-traditional, not on nature and flowers. Anyway, so the first poem I'm doing is from my book, My Poetry is the Beauty You Overlook, and it's called Mom Gone Too Soon. I am love. The first lips that touched your face were mine. I watched you breathe. I thought you knew I had to go. I was only meant to be a temporary guardian of your heart. I can't stay. You must walk without me. Focus on our love. Pain can't erase what we have. Don't let my death kill you. I love seeing you prosper. You make me proud. Death is not a sentence, it's just a word. Remember the love, fun dreams we made together? You can still do them. I'll be looking. Making sure you keep your promises. Live for me. Live for you. Make Mother's Day Purpose Day. Don't use me to stay stagnant. I birthed a conqueror. I saw it in your eyes. You are not wrong for missing me. Just don't miss your own life too. I'm at peace. I want you to find a piece of peace too. I'll always love you, Mom. All right. I'm going to do some haiku, non-traditional, still 17 syllables. If I'm off a count because I'm memory, forgive me. I always have a counter. Haiku. Strong women are not unbreakable. We just know you ain't the hammer. Haiku. Some of you are blaming yourself for being cut by broken people. Haiku. You are not a walking mistake. You're an undiscovered miracle. Haiku. It's okay to be scared. Do it anyway. Scared people succeed too. Haiku. How come Super is a man, but we have to wonder about woman? Haiku. Stop asking fools for wisdom. You don't see lions asking sheep nothing. And I'm going to go on to this next poem. It is not titled. Maybe my pen could teach your pen how to swim, but you're too busy hating, so you can't learn no lessons. You don't get to define me with your faulty ink. You don't get to decide I'm only good for haiku. You don't get to decide what I'm good for at all. The only thing you get to decide is what part of my shade you get to sit in. So have a seat and watch me slay on a stage you swore I'd never step on. Don't you get it? I'm not fearful of ink dripping from a dry pen. Stop trying to ungoogle me. The best you can do is hold my cape and make sure it don't get dirty. You can play Robin while I'm at bat. Man, I slaughter 17 syllables when I sleep. So when I get up and add a conjunction to make it a poem, it definitely does function. You see, this poet can weaponize her words so quickly, you don't even know you've been cut. I use your own blood to dismiss you with. Don't complain about my verbiage. If what I say is so useless, why don't you use it less? Drinking my Kool-Aid but claiming not to like the flavor. You don't seem thirsty no more though. My poetry is not open to debate. This pen and paper be Houdini and make pain disappear. All you need to do is take a seat in my pew. Watch my words take flight, penetrating souls and feeding minds. I'm a doctor. I perform surgery on your right and left cortex. I don't get played. I write the script. I walk around with this disease in my mouth, trying not to infect you. Yes, my words can give you purpose, but they also give subpoenas. You've been served. Never step into a poet's den unprotected. Your tongue can't save your ears from the verbalization of punishment that I can inflict. Yes, I can make you smile, but I can also make your thoughts bleed. I make stitches necessary while I cut open your closed-mindedness. I serve truth as an appetizer, the main course wisdom. You don't get to pick from my menu, but no, everything I serve is food for thought. Haiku. How much blood are you willing to lose to make those red flags you ignore? Haiku. Men fight for what they want. If you have to chase him, then he don't want you. Haiku. If you keep kissing frogs, how will you know what a prince tastes like? Haiku. Stop blaming men for having baggage when you have a storage unit. Haiku. Get counseling. Your mate is not your therapist. They're your victim. Let's see what to end with, Haiku. They thought they broke you, but you're a glow stick. They just exposed your light. Thank you.
Kim, as usual, just pop, pop, pop. All right. Thanks, Queen. Next up, we got Sean Murphy.
Wow. Kim, I'm not gonna say a hard act, that's an impossible act to follow. So I'm so humbled, I'm relaxed. There's no pressure. I can't follow that. I'm loving this. LP, thank you so much for making this happen. You know, this is what it's all about, right? We have to lift each other up and not wait for anyone else to do it. So full support to everyone who's doing the writing and showcasing writers, because like I said, if we can't find love for each other, we're in bad shape. So I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to read some poems from my chapbook, The Blackened Blues, which came out this summer. It's part of an ongoing project that looks at a series of cultural, political, artistic figures and tries to kind of interrogate history. And sometimes that's my own history. Sometimes that's American history through the lens of looking at famous and infamous people. So I'm going to read a handful of these, including two that LP said she liked. So I'm definitely going to respect the Queen tonight and read those. But I'm going to start with one that's, I think, hopefully pretty self-explanatory. It's called Trayvon's Last Meal. Once upon a time, a teen, I stole silver pieces from my mom's purse because I had a habit to feed. And mostly it didn't matter because I could. Every day after school, candy of every color. Pimple bait only boys who jerk off into dirty socks find enticing. Free to be ugly and dumb. What I'm saying is I was unexceptional. What is this? This guilt? Do memories carry contriteness for every transgression, real or especially imagined? Immunities having dough and the answers to questions never even asked. If you were innocent, what would you choose for your last meal? The entitled might say bread, which is life, which is God. And before dying, see what is white and what is wrong. And the next one is one that LP appreciated. So out of respect, I'm going to throw this one up. It is for one of my literary heroes and a man who's very famous, but I think should be more celebrated for a life dedicated to advocating for peace. And his name is Kurt Vonnegut. He was also an unrepentant chain smoker, so I give him some love for that. This is called Kurt Vonnegut's Cigarettes. So it goes. There's only one thing you can rely on, but don't think about that hocus pocus, the artistry of our inhumanity and our absurd genius at inventing novel ways to slaughter, or worse still, erase all evidence of everyone not born with ways and means inherited, cultivated by history that renders errors invisible by magic, acts required so that otherwise silly people are taken seriously, or else it's back to the drawing board where epitaphs are immortalized amongst the rubble. After solutions are finalized, silenced witnesses smoked out by the one deity everyone must obey, death. What is it about smoke and death anyway? Remember the way they once sold us things like crusades and cigarettes or steaks made to cleanse and clarify brutal truths, rare and bloody? Marinated in words every minister or mother knows by heart. This hurts me more than it hurts you. No matter what your eyes tell you, adjourn judgment and go with your gut. the capacity to discard childish things like love over loyalty. God wrote a book of his own, you see, the writing on the walls of every cemetery and formal institution. Ask no questions and it will all make sense if you make it to eternity. All the injustice and contradiction that bedevil the ones caught in the crossfire, which is everyone you've seen. So, if you still can't comply, how about going to sleep in your garage? Or else try something a bit more brazen, say a belt tightened around your Adam's apple, or eat a bullet, the breakfast of champions, or belly flop off a bridge, or admit you're not man enough to be a man of action. They whom appall those who think thinking is salvation. No, you know, despite all the unspeakable things you've described, there's only one alternative. Practice what you preach. Soldier on, pretending paradise isn't lost if enough of us say enough. And pray that truth sticks to us like time, that there's not nothing after the ending of every story ever told, every illusion entertained, every entreaty unanswered, a snuffed out pile of pall-malls, those friends who always tell you straight, you're dying, so why not enjoy it? And on a little bit lighter note, another one that LP endorsed. This is a very white and genuine tribute to the amazing Tina Turner, and it's called Tina Turner's Legs. Those thighs could crack your back like a peanut beneath a pair of pumps, or slice your head off like freshly shaved scissors, and you'd lick them like lollipops, in awe and almost insane, a dream come true. No, video is as good as it'll ever get, and that's good enough. You wouldn't even begin to know how to handle those miles of succulent straight lines, lost in darkness, delirious. Look, but don't touch, or better yet, just listen. There's a lot you could learn. The thigh bone's connected to the hip bone. The hip bone's connected to the backbone. Look at them. Walk a mile in those heels, muscle and rhythm and the brutal love of harmony. You have to be strong to bear that body of work. You carry that weight long enough and the burden becomes a kind of blessing, at least in the eye of the beholder. So take a deep dive into this river and come out on the other side, mountain high. We always try to kill what we can't control, and that's a whole history of colored commentary. Black and blue, the black and blues of beautiful blackness. Listening and looking, thirsty like a lush in a liquor store, but this kind of sweetness could kill you. And you'll die tasting brown sugar on your tongue, panting like Pavlov's dog, kissing those souls and holding out hope that one day soon they'll walk all over you. And I'm going to end with a short one that's a tribute to Richard Pryor. I think all of us are old enough to not only know who he is, but know that in addition to, I think, being the undisputed heavyweight champ of stand-up comedy, he was a very troubled man and was put through the ringer by a crazy society that thought he was crazy. But to me, one of the kind of unbelievable, crazier than fiction is when he seemingly accidentally lit himself on fire. But it turned out that was an aborted suicide attempt, which to me is just the most painful, literally painful metaphor for the struggles he had, but also his genius. So this is called Richard Pryor's Flesh. Every man who tells the truth has to take the heat, face it, eat it, bathe in it, and pour lighter fluid on the flames. This is just what a genius does. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering. You see, the gods demand it, their alms. Mere mortals can put cash in the basket, but certain sorts of men pay a different way. The kind of currency that leaves singed skin and scars, that's the price of admission. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. How? Bodies are only boats surrounded by the spirits. Why? If you have to ask, you'll never know. Prove you mean it. That means you're real. This life only hurts because you're alive. Thank you all.
Thanks, Sean. I love that book.
Wow.
Right, next, Nicole.
Right. So I'll be reading from my, I write science fiction and fantasy and horror. And I'll be reading from this book, which is called Kill Three Birds. It's a Kingdom of Avis mystery. It's a fantasy mystery. So it's kind of like a whodunit set in a fantastic secondary world. And so I'll be reading the first chapter of that, which is kind of brief. Just a little background, in the Kingdom of Avis, everyone is placed into a bird caste. And so all the provinces are called nests and all the cities are called eggs. And so you'll hear Prentice talk about eggs, and she means cities. And so also, they're set up like the Vatican. So the order is who she works for. She's an investigator. And so the order, the owls are the Pope. The bishops are doves, and you'll hear that because she was working with it. And then the cardinals are cardinals, and the hawks are like the investigative arm, right? They do all the investigations and the supernatural stuff. So Kill Three Birds, a Kingdom of Avis mystery. You want to see what a killer looks like? Look in the reflecting glass, Prentice Tacipa said over her shoulder. Her voice rose above the evening's insects chittering. Anyone is capable of murder. Those who are with the goddess and follow along her path don't slaughter others, Dove Balthazar said, with a sweeping arm across the bloodied body between him and Prentice. The white gold-trimmed sleeves of his cloak just missed the carnage. Hawk Prentice, try to remember how this woman lived, holy, pure. She's a teenager. Prentice pinched the bridge of her nose and sighed. Balthazar, like most in this rural egg, was about to discover the true nature of human beings. Anyone was capable of great violence when dumped into the right situation. Doves, like him, only saw goodness in people. That was their role. She put her attention back on the body. Despite the velvety darkness enveloping the sight, Prentice used her skill to observe what most people missed. This wasn't homicidal rage. The body was covered in blood, but Prentice could tell she'd been hit with a blunt object. Her hands bore defensive wounds. A pit tightened in the bottom of the hawk's stomach. Do you want to talk about the skeletal remains we found over there in the woods? We can wait on that one. Tomorrow will be here soon enough. Prentice watched Balthazar's face. He paused. His index finger pointed at Prentice's chest. Her scarlet cloak was cinched tight at the waist and crossed with a leather gun belt that contained her talons. Skeletal remains, he gaped. There's no rush. There's a depression in the grass, but the trail has gone cold anyway. Body's been there a while. She shook her head and stepped back from the current corpse, moving to the trail that snaked through the woods behind the church. Like most eggs, this one had a centralized location to worship. The two men, suspects, who came here, they're gone by now. 2 men? How do you know they were men? Balthazar followed her to the worn path, his white cloak grabbing leaves and other ground debris in his wake. Prentice took out a cigarette, hand-rolled with tobacco. She snapped her fingers, sparking a small flame. She touched the cigarette tip and inhaled deep and long. When she exhaled the stream of purple smoke through her nostrils, Balthazar scowled. Answer me, Hawk Tacipa, he coughed. Can you stop smoking? No, Prentice said. No, you can't stop, or no, you can't answer me. Balthazar's thick eyebrows rose in question. I requested help from the order. We have a real situation here. Some of my nesters are dead. The eagles have no idea what's going on. Prentice sighed. Yeah, and the cardinal sent me, the hawk. Let me work. The smell of blood is disturbing and turns my stomach. I'm not a condor, okay? She didn't want to explain to him that smoking kept her from puking at death scenes. Yet underneath the putrid odor, something else surfaced. It hinted strongly of earth magic, tinged with something black. How did you know about the skeletal remains? We searched the grounds after we found Gretchen. Hawks see the unseen. Prentice pointed to her hazel eyes, wide and large, stretched from the bridge of her nose toward her temples. From a young age, Hawks' appearances unsettled others. She spent a lot of her childhood in Nibanye with her family. Her male siblings went out to school to work. Homeschooled by Rooks, Prentice and her sisters worked hard on their studies. She adjusted her headscarf and sighed. In her role, she saw what ordinary people missed. She'd been born with this gift. As a descendant of Hawks, her mother worked for the order, trained as an investigative arm. Hawks were dispatched to see what others could not. Now, here she stood in the remote Gold Egg, a small community of 300 to 500 people. We have a real problem here. Someone is using your woods as a dumping ground. She rubbed her right temple. Obviously. Who? You mentioned 2 men? Balthazar threw up his hands. Prentice hated her ability sometimes. There had been no evidence to suggest there had been more killings, but Prentice could tell someone had been using this recreational section to dump bodies. So she set off in the air, and as she soared, she searched for more disturbances in the soil or newly dug graves, using her ability to see through the pitch black night. She spied the heap of what looked like a burned corpse, the eviscerated body left in ashes. She could see Balthazar's confused and frustrated face as she flew over him. He wanted a fast answer and resolution. She didn't blame him. Killing frightened people. When she landed beside him, she stumbled and grabbed his shoulder to steady herself. Sorry. She pushed herself to a standing position. Damn it. Are you all right? Balthazar touched her shoulder. We need to get you back to the church. Prentice nodded. Yes, we can speak more there. She made out that Balthazar had nodded and gestured to the carriage driver. The dove started forward and she followed, her hands out in front of her to keep her from walking into him or anything else. Here, let me help you. Balthazar took her hands and helped her climb into the back of the carriage. In the quiet presence, his quiet presence loomed in the small carriage. She could feel his questions. Indeed, she got them every time the order dispatched her to another egg. The doves all had the same nosy inquiries. It's stuffy in here, Balthazar said at last. Prentice heard the creaking of the window as he rolled it down. One of my abilities is to see the unseen. Yes, that is what makes your kind so invaluable to the order. But what many do not know is that using the ability costs me some of my own natural sight. What do you mean? Concern crept into Balthazar's tone, coupled with surprise. Each time I use my abilities, I am limiting my own sight. Eventually, I will be blind. He gasped. By the goddess, is it so for every hawk? It is. Prentice thought of her mother, very much alive in her later years, except she could no longer see. The order retired her forthwith, and she spent the rest of her days in the cottage with her family. She could no longer see with her eyes, but her other senses more than made up for it. Her hearing became excellent, and she worked at the church as an organist. She had a great ear. Sacrifice is in the blood, Prentice muttered, her mother's favorite saying. It was true for all daughters of hawks. The sacrifice ran in the blood. And that's it. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Nicole. That was dope.
Hi, everyone. I am Chisaraokwu, and I am just having so much fun here. Thank you, LP, for this invitation and the opportunity to read with all of you guys tonight. I'm debating still what to read, but let me start off with this. The month of October, October 1st, marks Independence Day for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This is where my family is from. And 6 years into their independence, there was the Biafra War, or the Nigerian Civil War, which was waged from 1967 to 1970. Over the last couple of decades, I've been doing interviews with survivors of that war, including members of my family and their descendants, as well as those that I don't know, and have been working on a collection based on those interviews and those experiences. So I will start in memoriam to those who were lost and in honor to those who were lost, those who fought, and those who still remain, to read these next two poems. The first one is called Border Crossings, which first appeared in Obsidian. Border Crossings. Oh, and you will also hear in this poem the Igbo language. My family is of the Igbo ethnic group, and you will also hear English. And if you have any questions about what I said, hopefully it's self-evident, but I'm happy to answer afterwards. Border Crossings. Marrow is the heartland that splits time and calls us one. I am not one of them. Ugo, Agu, Mbe. I dig for Ilu that decodes blood ties, life lessons, and Wegamike na Ibo, this tongue weakened by waves of salt and years. This is not a question. They know I cannot claim to have discovered what already exists. I should have listened to the cuts in their skin, their ciphered laugh that hid teeth under cracked lips, should have recognized the inherited fire. I remain dispossessed, an immigrant regains stories from their tongues, wet with new words, old worlds. Noku Beke, Selah. Their past is a smoldering country I must travel words to get to, and they are not ready to speak a bridge. So that was Border Crossings. The phrase, Enwegamike na Igbo, I don't have strength in the Igbo language. That's literally what it means. Because me, it's my second language and it's not all that great either. And so that's where that's coming from. And then the phrase, Image otiesiekuya, you don't know how to speak our tongue. That's literally what it is. And they're not asking a question. They're telling me. The second poem is called When God Sat in Enugu, We Wondered Who We Were. And there's an epigraph that goes with that, and I will read the epigraph to give some context. Enugu became the seat of the Republic of Biafra during the Nigerian Civil War. Radio Biafra, headquartered in Enugu, transmitted daily status updates from the war front to the people of Biafra. As starvation and death overwhelmed the Republic, for many, the voice of Radio Biafra became like that of God. When God sat in Enugu, we wondered who we were. Enugu State, Biafra, 1968. 1. The stream that catches war's peculiar rainfall, or the spigot from where salt sprinkles the morning? The crack where groans seep into sky, or the spear of salvation? Or the Israelites hearing from the God cloud, claiming their promised land? Or skin-draped rubies strung from barbed wire trees? The groan clotting in God's throat while our fate clings to wiretaps? Did he barb wire trees to the sky to keep us from clinging? Is our blood the rainfall that puts God at ease? Are we just fetching him from the stream of our lives? 2. We seep into trees, into sky falling,
Keep our seer cries out of God's hearing. Grown streams of barbed wire to catch the war falling, from the sky. God sits on rubies, hangs our fear out every morning. Barbed wire's a tree in the shape of a promise. We sip rubies from those streams every morning and after hang throats out to dry. 3. Oh, Enugu sky morning, from where ruby salt falls, from where cloud-filled promises wandered. Finally, at ease, our salvation. That poem first appeared in About Place Journal's Geographies of Justice, and I'm very excited they nominated it for Best of Net for this year. So it's being considered for that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. The last one from this series that I'm going to read is called War Fatigues. War Fatigues, or What Constitutes a Declaration of War. War fatigues, or what constitutes a declaration of war. We will deconstruct this suffering out of old news and wait for someone to announce that the resurrection will be at noon, and with it our hoped for reparations. Spinning shadows will loosen jaws just enough for them to proclaim what they might have done had they been Pilate, Malcolm, or Lyndon B. They will wash their hands in ink and hide behind blue walls, thick walls, oiled walls, pay walls, when asked what they did when another black, black. This ink is black. This skin is black, dark as night, black shot by police for dreaming. Settling squatters, beating their tired tail into black skin, calling it fashion. All right, I am going to read 2 more. One is a poem that was first published in Gyroscope Review. It pays homage to my city, New York City, which I love, not only for the poetry scene, but, you know, just it's New York City, come on. So here it is, The City. The city carries elephants on paper planes through its sewers, breathes sighs through handcuffs and brokers' fees, bleeds tails on the concrete, hot and hungry, a dream drowning bodies between 2 rivers. Her story, an unscripted comedy of handmaids, a street corner solopreneur selling darkness in a square full of lights. The rhythms and the cracks, the rhythm in the cracks. The rhythm is the crack, breaking bodies, breaking souls. So that is The City from Gyroscope Review. The last one I'm going to read, I'm experimenting, y'all. Sometimes I just write a thing down like hours before and just want to test it out on some folks. So this is that new-ish. Let's see what the new-ish does in this forum. The title of it is called You. Hopefully you get what is being said here. All right, you. Baby girl, why you sashay like the hum of freedom? Don't you, when folk tell you how much why everyone have something to say about you? You say free like you pulling revolution through your bones. Ain't nobody asked you. Who cares about you? Black you, yeah, you. Like a bushel ain't made weight. Acting like we all get to escape ourselves. Not you, not you. You ain't. In the beginning, we moved. Who you to uncork your throat, pour libation, and sing hallelujah into each leaf and bone? You, all black you, a whole you. Act like you ain't remember being born into this slave-holding republic. Act like we an unpleasant appointment you got to speed through. Black girl. Hey, black girl, I'm talking to you. Yes, you. How do you own the wind like that? Y'all, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, LP. And thank you to all the readers.
Wow. Y'all were amazing. Thank y'all so much. Well, I just want to give everybody a shout out. That was just amazing from start to finish. This reading was so dope. And I'm so grateful that you guys agreed to participate. That is the conclusion of the Literary Cypher-October. Please, everybody, remember to put your links in the chat. Put your social media in the chat. Again, I apologize. I tried to do the YouTube live. I tried to do the Facebook live. I don't know. Mercury retrograde normally like kind of bypasses me, but this time it was like, nah, got you. So the recording will still be posted into the group with a YouTube link, and you can share it or do whatever. But yes, thank you guys so much. This really was it was right on time. Right on time. I want to give a quick shout out to Chisaraokwu and Omayma, my two Women in Bloom Poetry Salon sisters. Shout out to JP and Cynthia Manick from the Poetry Salon. If anybody wants to stay on and chat, I'm gonna leave the meeting open. But otherwise, good night. Peace out, y'all. Oh, don't forget the Literary Cypher November 16th, 7 p.m., same time, same place. And so hopefully we'll see you there. Feel free to post any events that you got coming up in the group or send it to me and I'll share it. Like I said, our whole mission is to promote and support each other and build that community. All right. I love y'all. Everybody unmute and give yourselves a round of applause. That was everything.
Oh, yeah.
That was everything.
Fire. Thank you,
It was
LP.
fire.
Oh
Thank
my
you.
God. That was just, I loved it. Loved it. Loved hearing everything. Thank you.
That was
What?
dope. That was
Yes, it
dope.
Unreal. Unfreaking real.
Thank you.
The last line, girl.